welcome back to another episode of Laptop Retrospective in VR today. And we are going to be looking at Compound, which is this really neat little demo that is on Steam right now. And I happened to stumble upon it, and it looked like it had some really awesome MS-DOS era style graphics that really just spoke to the inner child with me. I'm talking about Alien Carnage or Halloween Harry, Dangerous Dave, Cosmos Cosmic Adventure, Commander Keen. Like, it just has that retro feel, and I was totally ready for the difficulty that came along with these games. It is distinctly a VR title, which was awesome to see as well. There was some interactions like eating stuff that was very familiar from other games, and that was how you selected your difficulty in this one. The one thing that was not made abundantly clear was how to start. Once you selected the difficulty, you have to exit, which is totally counterintuitive. Anyway, the only level in this demo is kind of this sewer level, but you know what? This is probably the most fun I've ever had in a sewer level in any game ever. So the graphics are very much the classic retro MS-DOS feeling graphics. They're very, very simplistic, but also very current. There's a lot of features there, like a map to help you. You can see how many hits you can take, which are only 3, and if you're in the wrong place, you can use those up very, very quickly. There is no immunity state. If you get hit 3 consecutive times, you lose 3 consecutive bars. So I just got hit twice there. I got one heart left, and that is it. So this game exponentially ramps up in difficulty as you complete stages. So that can be a real downfall if you're not careful, or if you're careless, I should say. So each of these stages is randomly generated, so you never play the same stage twice. So if you die, you don't know the layout of the next stage it's going to load. You have to play a completely new stage, which is going to frustrate a lot of people, but it's also kind of fair. You can't know exact enemy placement and have it be easier the second time around. So it's highly reliant on your skill, and also a little bit of your luck. So the main objective, at least in the demo, is to clear the stage of all enemies. Some enemies will drop extra ammo for your submachine gun there. Your pistol has unlimited ammo, but has a cooldown factor. And you have to reload the submachine gun, which is a 2-stage process, putting the magazine into the top of the weapon, and then priming it with another button on the controller. And as you can see, I've cleared the stage, so I win, and I move on to the next stage. And in the background, you can hear this kind of motor, and that is of the tank enemy. And those tank enemies, once they spot you, will come after you. And as I mentioned before, the game gets harder and harder the more you play it. So whereas before, these standard enemies would not bother with you once you engage them in combat, now they're a little more aggressive. They'll move around the level if they hear you firing nearby. So they're learning the enemy types is challenging because they will change. Now that blinking magazine going away reminds me that these power-ups do not stick around for very long. At least the ammo ones do not. The health ones seem to stick around for a lot longer, but if you don't get to the ammo in time, you will lose it. And that's not something I'm a huge fan of, but it is what it is. So we've got 2 health power-ups there, which are these big, ugly burgers. And as you can see, I'm kind of messing around with the 2 different types of movement. It does support touchpad movement on the Windows Mixed Reality controller, and it also supports teleport as well. And I'm not too sure if it was me shoveling too much snow the day that I recorded this, or if there's just something off with the locomotion, but I did feel a little bit of motion sickness during my playthrough of this game. If I spun around too quickly, I actually felt myself lose balance once or twice. And that's the first time I've experienced that sort of thing. Anyway, with that being said, as you can see, the difficulty can ramp up very quickly if you are careless, and you can die. And you'll notice on this playthrough, I'm in a completely different room, and the stage has completely changed, so I can't use any memorization to really help myself. Critical hits are a thing, so it feels very satisfying to take your time and aim with the pistol. The spread on that machine gun is horrendous. I don't even know why they bothered to put a sight on it, quite frankly. But the shooting feels good, the recoil feels good. This little set of gunfire exchange was challenging and rewarding. They will fill the corridor that they last saw you in with projectiles, so it's not like you can duck out of their way. They'll stop shooting, you duck back, they're not shooting at you, and you can kind of take advantage of that system like a lot of modern shooters. They will fill that corridor with bullets until they're convinced that you've moved on, or you're back in the line of sight. So again, it's a highly replayable, very addicting game with a great concept, and also low system requirements. They recommended a 970, so obviously anything from a 1070 up is going to be able to run this quite easily. You might even be able to get away with a 1060, I'm not sure. But the artwork is great. I was wondering how I would feel about everything being full bright in terms of the lighting. I don't know if that's something they're going to change later, but actually it felt right. It felt very MS-DOS-y, retro, 8-bit graphic gameplay, and I didn't find myself being bothered by it one little bit. And if anything, this is a game that just shows how important gameplay is, and how important simple mechanics are, and how unimportant graphics can be. Like, this is not what you would call a technically advanced game. Some of you might not even call it a beautiful game. I think it's absolutely wonderful. The graphics are colorful, the weapons are colorful, enemies are different colors than the backgrounds, projectiles are unique colors so you can see them coming at you. So the aesthetics of the game do not get in your way of playing the game, and that is absolutely important, especially in a VR title where it's more reliant on your perception of your surroundings. So now that we've moved up to kind of our third tier, things are getting a bit more intense. Enemies are going to become considerably more aggressive, and keeping that submachine gun stocked is of critical importance. And again, you can kind of see the huge spread of fire and the relentlessness that these enemies have to fill you full of holes. And again, this is very akin to classic gaming, 3 hits and you're done. When I first tried, I died quite a few times quite quickly until I remembered, you know, it doesn't play like a modern game that's going to forgive you if you take a hit. You're going to be punished. So you got to be ready and make sure that you've got the skill set to deal with that level of difficulty. Now, keep in mind, I didn't play it on the highest difficulty setting or the lowest one. Kind of wanted to go for the average experience. And I do not regret my choice. In fact, that's where I would suggest that you would start as well if you wanted to give this a try. And if you haven't figured it out, I do really highly recommend it, especially as a free demo. If you have friends coming over and you want to give them a casual taste of VR, that's something that's not the lab, I think that this would be a really good, careful introduction, because the gameplay kind of scales with player ability. If you can't clear that stage, then you're going to have to practice until you're ready to move on. So that is one nice thing, is that it doesn't really allow you to access the more difficult stages until you've kind of perfected that formula. And that's kind of an old school method of the game teaching the player the skills that they need to advance without tutorials and other things. So it's all about that risk reward. Now, this next stage is where things get really intense. I should also point out that they restock your SMG at the beginning of every level, which is really good. If you had to rely on pickups, I think that would severely hinder how far the player could get with just that pistol. I'm also really looking forward to how they might implement other weapons, and considering that this is very much a classic feeling MS-DOS style game, I'm hoping for like homing rockets and maybe lasers, and I don't know, like the sky's really the limit. And in many ways, I can't help but feel that they could really take this kind of control system and even port over, create multiple different feeling games with the same mechanics. And what I mean by that, of course, is like you could do like a Dangerous Dave style game, kind of using these core mechanics without too much adjusting of the difficulty. You could do Halloween Harry or Alien Carnage with this system again without too much difficulty, because so many of those games when they were made kind of all followed the same side-scrolling formula. And I would just be really excited if they could somehow pay tribute to those specific games, as well as do their own thing, of course. I don't want them to feel that they're being pigeonholed into catering to a particular group of people that may or may not even play this game. But I think it would also be a really cool way to introduce people that maybe didn't experience those games the first time around into that kind of history and heritage. And also, it seems to be that the enemies are kind of randomly assigned to the stage, so you might not even have the same amount or enemy types. Like in that last stage, for example, there were actually very few enemies before the stage was completely beat, which kind of threw me off. But I guess that's also a known bug, according to the developer notes that I've read. As you can see, it's getting really intense in there. The enemies are getting more aggressive. They're closing in. So lots of stuff is happening. I know I haven't mentioned the mini-map very much, but that is super helpful, turning this labyrinth into something very easy to navigate. It's very similar to the map screen, say, in The Legend of Zelda for the NES. Keeps track of doors, rooms that you've been in, and just helps increase the flow of what could be a much slower game. For example, if we had no map like in the original Wolfenstein 3D, it would significantly hinder the playability of this. So the decisions that the development team has made are all very good, very positive, and I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a VR title to look out for when it finally gets released, because if they have this level of polish and detail with the rest of the finished product, and also expand it to include more weapons, more enemy types, and more locations, then I really think that we're going to have kind of an awesome, awesome title. So I would strongly encourage that if you are running Windows Mixed Reality, HTC Vive, Oculus Rift, anything that can run Steam VR titles, that you head on over to their Steam page. There are 2 pages, one for the actual game that's not out yet, and one for the demo. And grab this demo. And speaking of the demo, it's, I think, 60 megabytes to download. This game is phenomenally tiny. Phenomenally tiny. Like, even the DOS ports of the games that I've talked about in this video don't take up such a little amount of space. So this is truly not only an achievement in terms of gameplay and mechanics, but it's also got to be a technical achievement as well, keeping texture sizes and everything else just firmly controlled. So again, can't recommend it enough. You have to check this out if you love retro games, or even the feeling of them, or if you love VR titles. Highly recommended. I think I've said enough, and I will see you next time. Thank you for tuning in. If you like this sort of content or anything else that I've made so far, make sure that you're leaving a thumbs up, subscribe, or even ask me a question in the comments. Would love to hear from you. See you next time.